And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart with the New Jersey shirt on, the man himself. Home field apparel's own, Rutgers. What's up, Joe DeLeone?
I'm just so jazzed up. I got this new shirt, man. I am, and I have to be very clear here. I know it sounds like we're really trying to push them because they're one of our new sponsors. I gotta be honest. We are, but this is probably the most excited I've ever been about having a sponsor because the stuff that they make is awesome. The designs are cool, the quality is good. It's not like I'm just buying a cheap Gildan t-shirt that's got a screen print on it. These are really nice, good t-shirts. I don't know. I'm in a good mood. I got my new stuff. I'm happy.
Would Tony Soprano wear home field apparel? That's what people
think he would.
I think he would too. I think he would too. All right. We do got a lot to get into today. Joe, it is, in my professional opinion, the biggest college football week of the year. Now we're going to talk Georgia, Missouri. We're going to talk LSU and Alabama here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But let me read this slate to you very quickly. As one of our new listeners was on the show last night, Paper Pop. But Kansas State and Texas, I'm going to tell you, I might pick an upset here. Early 11 a.m. I might. We'll see. A&M and Ole Miss, Notre Dame and Clemson, which that game does not have the luster. I don't know.
I know. We should. I think we should preview that one. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah, we might have to go tomorrow too. We got a lot we got to talk about. Who knows what's in store for R&J this week? We talked Georgia, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. Did you know that in this rivalry, you would have to go back to the mid-30s that Oklahoma State has beat Oklahoma in Bedlam back-to-back years?
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I think Oklahoma is going to be poised for a little bit of a comeback this week.
Oklahoma State, I don't believe is ranked. They should be ranked. That's the mullet. That they're not.
It's the mullet. I keep telling you, every year people want to doubt the mullet, and every
year over USC.
Huh?
They should be over USC. Oklahoma State should be ranked over USC.
That is easily can be debatable, but the sense of the matter of the fact that that's even can be debatable is a little bit shocking. Washington, and you speaking of USC, Washington and USC.
Boat race.
Okay. A lot of points going to be scored in that game. I'm taking the over. UCLA and Arizona as well face off. I am picking an upset again. I am on the Jeff Fish train. Give me the Wildcat.
I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to make a decision on where I'm exactly going later on in the week, but I don't know, dude. I think UCLA has been kind of cooking the past couple of weeks very quietly.
Yeah, they have. They're really good, and what people don't think of Chip Kelly these days, they are very physical. You know, when he was at Oregon, they were very finesse, but now at UCLA, they are a very, very physical football team. But the two games that we have here tonight, LSU versus Alabama, you know I'm jazzed up, baby. You know I'm jazzed up. It's Bama week.
This is going to be a long week having to hear you just nonstop talk about this. It's going to be an even longer week. It's going to be an even longer week if LSU beats Alabama. I got to admit, long month. I got to admit, actually, that's to be fair. You're right. Last year, it was a whole month that you kept talking about that game.
Can't stop, won't stop.
I'm leaning LSU right now. I don't think it's a heavy lean, but I'm leaning LSU, which is probably a bad thing. It's probably
I'm going to need you to pick Bama. I'm going to need you to go ahead and pick Bama.
Logic dictates I can't do that.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it. I need you to pick Bama so it makes me feel better. And then you can come into the show and be like, told you so, and if they lost. And then I can come in here in all celebration mode if they win.
I don't want to vindicate Alabama fans, as we've found out this entire season.
You're just holding on to.
I'm not holding on to a grudge or anything. I'm not. There's no grudge. I don't read any of the comments, so I don't know what they're saying about me. I'm not.
Yeah, don't go in the
very
comments,
critical,
especially when you talked about Michigan. Do not go in those comments, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. But what I get it. I respect Nick Saban's legacy. I respect how good Alabama's been over the past decade plus. But this isn't their year. It's not. And it's frustrating to hear them being talked up as if they're going to win another national championship. What if they do?
What if they do beat LSU? If they beat LSU, they're going to Atlanta.
If they beat LSU, it is going to be more telling of deficiencies with LSU than it is strengths for Alabama. And I know that's going to piss Alabama fans off, but that is the reality for me.
All right, well, we'll talk about that. But also, that game could potentially be for the West, even though Ole Miss is still out there. We'll talk a little bit of Ole Miss here tonight in our top 10, which will be at the end of these two games. Georgia and Mizzou face off in Athens this week. It is going to be a great day for CBS. I tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they got the killer slate this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, dude. That Georgia-Mizzou game, I think on paper we could sit here and make the argument that this could be close, but I think when we read between the lines and pay attention to what happened the past couple of weeks, this might get ugly. There's a possibility for that.
There is one area that I do think that there is a path for them to keep it close. Here, I'll just go ahead and give one of them. Georgia is tied for 77th in the country and getting sacks, okay? Missouri's in the top 10 and not allowing them.
Yeah.
If they do give, which I don't think that they can, because Georgia does have dudes all over the place, okay? I'm not saying that Georgia's not going to come in here and wreck shop. But if they can hold on just a little bit, and give Cook a little bit of time with these receivers. If you give him time, these receivers will get open. DBs can only cover for so long.
That's
I
fair.
do think that is one place. When you're tied for 77, Joe, they are ranked in the top 15 in every statistical category, meaning Georgia, offense and defensively. The only one that they are not, at least the ones that I follow, is sacks in games. It's tied for 77. That's not great.
No, it's
not great at all.
It's not, and I have to say that those Missouri numbers, Javon Foster, Connor Tollison have been great this year, but they might be a little fugazi, those numbers, because what defensive lines have they really been tested by? And we saw what happened when LSU got after him in the second half of that game. I mean, that might be more reflective of what happens for Georgia.
Very true. One thing that I do notice, we'll talk about that. People are sleeping on how good Missouri's run defense has been. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
They have been very good. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll give our top 10 here tonight. So we'll probably be yelling at one another by the end of the show. My heart rate will be skyrocketed. It is Bama week from an LSU fan, but let's take the bias out of it. Let's talk about this game. It's going to be really fun. So, Joe, we have no time to waste. Paper Pop. No time to waste. Let's talk about our good friends over at BetOnline.ag. But first, guys, do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share to all those Facebook groups on Facebook. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff. So many of you are not subscribing. Joe, we're closing up on the 3K mark.
25 is right around the corner. We're probably 2,500 tomorrow.
Okay. 2,500 by tomorrow, coming up on 3K. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that for us if you do not mind. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. All right, let's talk about our good friends at BetOnline.ag. Don't go anywhere. We talk about LSU, Bama, next. I'm froze over here. Hit the BetOnline ad. Hit the BetOnline ad.
It's not working.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. Pause. Hear me out. So, LSU and Alabama kick it off this weekend live, 6:45 CBS. It has been one of the bigger games in college football over the last 15 years, this specific game, since Nick Saban came back to the ranks of college football, taking over Alabama, facing his old team, the team that he took to the national title in 2003 in LSU. But Joe, I gotta admit something. So today, in my preparation for Alabama, I went and watched the Texas versus Alabama game. Jermaine Burton had 2 touchdowns that were called back in that game. When you're able to take a step back, okay, from like live reaction, oh my God, Texas upsets Alabama. Man, that game might not have been, should have been as close as some people were thinking. 2 penalties get called, 2 Jermaine Burton touchdowns back. The truth is, which were kind of ticky-tacky, I do think that Texas maybe should have lost that game by 10. I digress with that, because here is LSU and Bama staying with that thought process. Look, Joe, we were talking about this off air about Georgia Tech, of all teams. Teams and people and players are allowed to get better throughout the year. That's what I think Alabama did. It's also what I think LSU has done defensively, even though they got some players out in that secondary. It's going to be a massive thing with the dudes that they do have out in that secondary. But I think this is a collision course for who wins it in the West. You got the number 1 offense in the country, statistically, total offense in the country, first team in the country on third down, first in first downs allowed or not allowed, first in first downs obtained this year. LSU offensively is number 1 in every offensive statistical category. Defensively, they stink. Something's going to have to give, because a lot of people think Alabama offensively stinks, even though I do not agree wholly with that they do. I think that they've gotten better since that Texas game that we just talked about. This is a collision course. 2 really, really, really good head coaches tee off. LSU beat Bama in overtime last year. How do you see this one going?
Look, I agree with you. I think a lot of teams are allowed to improve throughout the season, but I think that our judgment is a little bit clouded with talking about Alabama, where I don't think that they've necessarily improved as the season has gone on. I think that we feel that they're better than they actually are, because they've taken advantage of some advantageous matchups and some overrated teams that they have beaten. I have come to the point where I think that Ole Miss win does look good, but the rest of the victories that they've pulled out are against lopsided teams with deficiencies that they effectively attack them. Look, for me, what is so critically important that in any football game and with any football team, if your offensive line is weak, that is going to catch up to you at some point. And they have skated by and they've gotten through the slate of games that they've had without any major issues, but they still remain at the 126th spot in the country in sacks allowed. And sure, we can point out that, or you could try to claim that some of those sacks came early on in the season. They still haven't been great. They have not been good. And they're going up against a quality LSU defensive line, just as Harold Perkins is starting to hit his stride. I would be very worried. We saw last year what happened when that defensive line got after Alabama. And I think that could very well happen again in this game. The other reason why I heavily lean LSU, actually, I won't say heavily, sorry. Why I lean LSU, I got ahead of myself there. Part of the other reason why I lean LSU, when you have a team that can score as quickly as LSU can, when you've got all those receiving options and Jaden Daniels has a little bit of time to throw, you can score in 3-4 plays. If they get 2 quick touchdowns, 1 quick touchdown, Alabama can't keep up with that. Alabama doesn't have the offensive production to keep up with that. They just don't. They are, I understand, can hit some big shots, but they are not built to score quickly when they need to.
I don't disagree that LSU offensively is in my opinion, they're the best offense in the country. Now, people say that I'm biased in saying that, but I literally have every statistical category that I can back up in saying that I think that they are. The problem I have with that, Joe, is I think that they're facing a really good defense. I think they're facing a really good secondary. I do think that LSU and Brian Kelly are going to come out with some different things, such as I think you do see Malik Neighbors in the slot more. I think that you might see a guy like Kyron Lacey that is their third wide receiver that nobody is talking about. He has had some crucial drops. Obviously, the biggest one coming against Florida State, where if LSU converts there, they might be able to hang into that game. But for me, I get what you're saying about them offensively. All right. Meaning Bama. But LSU has some guys out in the secondary that I think can be a very big-time mismatch for Alabama to exploit. I fully, and I mean fully, expect Alabama to come out of the gate attacking the boundary corners. Denver Harris is out. Deuce Chestnut is out. They had an injury to their best corner in Zy Alexander. Now they're down to freshmen. Okay. Very talented freshman. I will give you that. LSU had an amazing recruiting class last year. On the other side of that boundary is a converted safety that has come into a boundary corner. I know that Jalen Milroe isn't the best at lighting dudes up through the air, and he can throw deep shots. Okay. But if he can hit some, like if he can go 60% in some of the intermediate stuff that he throws, LSU could be in trouble, and they could be in that shootout. I do think that Alabama can get to 30 points on this LSU defense because of the deficiencies. Mekhi Wingo, their best interior defensive lineman, some believe, is out in this game, even though Jordan Jefferson, the backup, has been playing better than him. Mm-hmm. This is the ultimate Heisman game for Jaden Daniels. Now, I know that you've laughed. I know that you've scoffed, and you've kind of been joking with this, okay, just so LSU fans don't pile on to you here.
Yeah.
You've been pretty much joking with that all year. Jaden Daniels is the star. He is the key. He's going to have to go off. Alabama defensively has had issues. Joe Milton 2 weeks ago with quarterbacks that are able to take off, and he can easily do that. But history scares me here. Saban does not lose to people back-to-back times. This is also for the West for them. Like, they are also competing for the West. I see this as a 3-point game. I think it's going to be the closest hard-hitting game that we've seen in a long time. I think LSU's offensive line is built to push around a little bit. That Bama D-line, I really do believe that LSU has the best offensive line in the SEC. They are pushing dudes around. I think they're 17th in the country in rush yards a game. That's with the number one passing offense in the country, too. Mm-hmm. If they're able to come out of the gate swinging and scoring, you would feel a lot better in this game, in my opinion.
Right. I think, you're talking about Jaden Daniels being important for this game. I kind of push back a little bit on that. And the only reason why is that we already know who Jaden Daniels is. We know that he is going to step up and make plays for his team. And he did it against LSU. He did it against Missouri. And he has somehow gotten better on a week-to-week basis against quality opponents. He will be tested, having to try and complete passes against Terrion Arnold and Cooley McKinstry, who have been the best corner duo in the country thus far. But for me, I am so hyper-focused on the line of scrimmage. I am so hyper-focused on, as you just talked about, LSU, Will Campbell, that whole group, how they perform. Emory Jones being back is important. How they perform against Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. How do they step up to the occasion? You're not going to play a perfect game, but can you at least slow them down a little bit to give Jaden time to operate? Does Jaden protect himself effectively? Does he not leave himself open to some big hits, because that could be really, really big in this game. And then on the flip side of things, as I just talked about a second ago, can Alabama's offensive line play their best game so far this season? This is the best defensive front besides Tennessee that they have faced so far this year. They weren't perfectly clean against Tennessee. I think
what about A&M?
Oh, I completely forgot about it. And it's still, when they have played those opponents, when they have faced off with those opponents, statistically, it doesn't look like they got dominated by those defensive fronts, but there were some pretty bad plays throughout those games. There were some pretty big hits that came through on Jalen Milroe throughout those games. They have to play a cleaner football game if they want to win. And on top of that, does Jalen Milroe, can he get cooking in that intermediate passing tree? Can he start to get completions near the first down marker? Can he hit those throws, or are they going to rely so heavily on the deep ball? There is a really good chance, I think, that this game plays out like the Texas game did, where they started to get cooking. They hit the ball over the top a few times with their fast, deep threat receivers, and then Alabama just could not catch up because they were trying to play a game that they're not good at. They were trying to throw the ball way more than they're capably able to do, and they were chasing. LSU is in a position to force them to do that.
Does Nick subject himself to doing that? Because it's not just Jalen Milroe that I think has gotten better over the last couple of weeks. I think Tommy Rees has gotten more comfortable in his role. Like he has called
some
games.
Yeah.
But here's the thing for me. And to your point, what you're mentioning is, can Alabama sustain drives and get the ball down the field effectively enough
and be balanced
and stay with LSU? It's an interesting point that you bring up, because here's something interesting. First down offense, meaning how many first downs are you getting on a regular basis? Alabama is 97th in the country at obtaining first downs offensively. That is almost just a hair bit better, okay, like 5 first downs better than South Carolina, who's at 99, and Auburn, that's at 100. So what does that tell me? They're not able to sustain drive, at least to this exact point. They have not been able to sustain drives successfully. I think they got bailed out at A&M. Okay, I really do believe Jimbo bailed them out on the road. But after they blocked that field goal, they have been a different team. They have been very physical, special. They've tackled well. They've been more disciplined. I do agree that they are a little bit chaotic offensively, that if you take their deep ball game away, what Texas did in the second half, okay, to some extent outside the first Burton bomb. Okay?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, though, Joe. They had 2 touchdowns in that game against Texas that got called back that shouldn't have been, right? Like Alabama had 2 touchdowns. The one that got tipped up, Burton catches it in the end zone. The long Burton touchdown, they said a snap infraction. They allow Burton in the play to completely continue. Burton scores. All right. Okay. They even call it a touchdown. I do think that if you're LSU, though, and you look at this game, Joe, how are we 1,000% sure that LSU, that is going to have to start 3 freshmen, one of the 3 freshmen on the other boundary corner, which Jermaine Burton will be lined up against? Mm-hmm. Are you 1,000% sure that they can stop Jermaine Burton from getting big time catches and receptions and yak and touchdowns against them? That is the biggest question, because we have not seen the 3 freshmen on the outside. We just haven't.
Well, let me put this out there to you. I don't think you should go out of your way to try and stop that. It's been a bait and switch. And I look, I have said this. I have given Tommy Rees credit for actually calling some really good games and producing a scheme that is very unique to their play style, and that there's not a lot of the other teams in the country doing this right now, which is grinding the ball out on the ground and then hitting you over the top, because they know that they can't complete short passes. They know that they can't complete intermediate passes. They're going to try and attack you on those 10-plus yard route concepts. I would argue what we saw what happened with the Alabama-Texas game. They locked down the line of scrimmage. They got after Jalen Milroe. They were aggressive with their defensive line. They pressured him, and they could not pick up any yards on the ground. I forget what the rushing total that they allowed was, but it was pretty bad. But they did score some touchdowns on some of those deep throws and pick up some big gains on those deep throws. And you even mentioned the ones that were called back. They were able to get that stuff, but they weren't able to win the game because they can't connect on that every single drive. They're not going to. It's unsustainable. It is a part of the game that you statistically cannot convert that way on every single drive. I think that they just need to hyper focus on the line of scrimmage and slowing down their rushing attack and just let them play desperately like they did against Texas.
I do think that you got to find a way to make Milroe beat you from the pocket.
Yes, and that's what Texas did. And if there is a team that is built to do that, it's them.
Right. Well, and what happened? I mean, look, I know Harold Perkins doesn't always line up on this side. He usually comes from the in face or the strong side. They're going to have to find a way to get him on Proctor and let him work because speed kills, and you're going to have to find a way to get to number 4 and contain him. Now, right. Here's what I also think, okay, before we move on here.
Okay.
I'm not 1,000% sure that they're not going to use Milroe a little bit more with his legs. I think
they've progressively been doing that more, yeah.
Correct. They're going to do everything that they can. Another thing, with that being said, I think Jaden's got to use more of his legs. I think Jaden's got
to be careful. He can't do the shit that he did against Ole Miss where he got blown the hell up. Like he can't.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He can't do that. But at the same time, okay, I'm not going to fault him for taking a big hit when he accumulated 550 total yards and 5 touchdowns.
Well, it's not a matter about faulting him. If he gets hurt,
I get it. But here's the thing with that. We've been saying that for 2 years. Hell, we've been saying it for 3 years, even when he was at Arizona State, and he keeps getting up. I mean, that's true. Mauled. He got absolutely mauled by Georgia a year ago.
Yeah.
And threw for 200 yards in the first half.
But I would argue, though, medically, getting hit this much, eventually that's going to catch up to you.
Long run. But in this game, he's got to go all out like he did a year ago. Now, I'm not saying don't be smart, okay? Don't confuse by what I'm saying.
Yes.
He's got to get smart and get down. I'm not saying that he's got to try to run people over, okay? But he killed him a year ago with his legs. I think he's got to do it again this year. And I think this is the ultimate Heisman moment for JD5. You're giving LSU's D-line a little too much credit. I digress.
You think I mean, talent-wise, I think that they're really good.
Sure, I think talent-wise, but I don't know if they're going to be schemed up the right way to be able to get after him.
Fair. They weren't great at the beginning of the season. I think that the Missouri performance is a little bit more reflective of what they can be. If they play that way,
I agree.
It's ball game. Look, I'm going to add this final piece to this, and I'm sure that this will piss people off. I feel like the only reason why we're giving Alabama as much credit as they are and why people are going to pick Alabama this week and why this game is going to be talked up to be close, and you even said this, it's because of Nick Saban, because this game is at home. If this was played in the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, I don't think we'd be having the same conversation. I don't think, and if Nick Saban, okay, then I won't say that part. That would be a really stupid thing to say. I was going to say if Nick Saban wasn't the coach. Obviously, that's important. I just think that we hold these intangibles way too closely in a game like this, when for me, if we compare the strengths and the weaknesses of both rosters, LSU is far more favorable for this type of a football game when we look at these two teams.
I do think you make an interesting point, and you need to leave this in the video that you clip. I do think from an LSU perspective that we have not seen in the past. I am not saying Brian Kelly equals Nick Saban, but Brian Kelly is not. But from an in-game coaching, they are pretty much I mean, Brian Kelly is not a dummy.
No, he doesn't make a lot of bad decisions.
He doesn't make a lot of bad decisions. So I'm with you. All right. Georgia and Missouri in Athens this week. One game, we just got done talking about LSU and Alabama. This one's for the East. Georgia and Mizzou. You brought up something earlier, Joe, in the beginning of the show that I thought was very interesting. You said, yeah, maybe on paper this game looks a lot closer than we think. But you think that the dogs, as they like to bark at people, are going to roll Mizzou this week.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Look, Missouri has been really fun to watch. I am a huge Luther Burden fan, but I think that their schedule thus far, it's pretty noticeable to realize that nobody has really moved them up in the top 25. Their resume so far this season, it's kind of mid. Their best performances have come against average to slightly above average teams. They have not faced anything like this. And Georgia is freaking rolling. I'm going to say that every goddamn week that they are rolling and that they are on an absolute mission to just pummel everything in front of them. This is just another bump in the road, man. This is just another bump in the road for them until they get onto that, till they get to the SEC championship game.
I can't go there. Now, I'm not going to discredit Missouri as bad as you are. Let me just say that. I don't think that it's just as easy as you line up and you beat the dog shit out of them, puns intended. Mm-hmm. Do I think that Georgia could potentially steamroll them? Yes. I also think that this game could get close, okay? Because I don't think people are giving Drinkwitz and this offense enough credit. They are really good offensively. They're top 30 in total offense. When you look at them, they don't give up a lot of sacks. Their passing offense is top 20 in the country. They're at 17. Their rush offense, where it has not been fantastic, it's 73rd total, but that's little bit skewed because of the yards per carry that they're getting are pretty freaking high. It should not be 73rd. They go by obviously total yards and total carries and stuff like that on yards per carry, but they're not doing that for total rush offense. They should not be 75. They can do some good things. The thing that I don't think people are giving Missouri enough credit for, they're a top 25 rush defense. They have been. There were times in that LSU game early in that game that they were stopping them running the football. It took Jaden Daniels going completely nuclear in the second half, and that defense actually stepping up. They only gave up 14 points in that second half, and they were able to come out with the win there. Connor threw 2 interceptions, 1 pick six that sealed the deal for LSU. I'm not saying that this game is going to be close. I do think Missouri can keep it close. Hell, Joe, we saw it a year ago, okay? We literally saw this script a year ago. I do think that motivates Georgia.
Yes.
But here's the biggest pet peeve. Here's the biggest misconception when it comes to games like that. Everybody always says, oh, well, a team like Georgia, they're going to be back out for revenge. Everybody said that they almost lost to them last year. You're right. That's true. Missouri also got their first taste of blood that they can potentially knock off a big boy. They almost did it to let's call it what it is. Statistically, over the last 20 years, LSU in the SEC has been a big boy. They thought that they could do that. I say all that to say I still see Georgia winning by 14 here, but I do think that that's closer than some people think that it would be.
Yeah, I'm not saying that this is going to be a one or like a 4-score game or something crazy like that. I think that 14 to 17 points is going to be the final outcome. But you brought up last year how we saw what happened last year when these two teams played. I actually think this game is not really comparable to the Missouri Georgia game last year because this Missouri roster is completely different. It is a completely different team. And Georgia very clearly early on in the season was overlooking
Georgia.
a very beatable, that's true, a very, very beatable opponent. And we know that Georgia has this horrible tendency to playing down to weak opponents on their schedule. I compare this more to the Tennessee game last year where they at home were facing off with a team that everybody was hyping up. Nobody was talking about them. Everybody was talking about Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. Oh, look how explosive and fun they are. This is Josh Heupel's year. And they were pissed off as all hell at home. Wait, I forget if that was at home.
Yeah, it was at Georgia. Yep.
They were all pissed off and they smoked them. And I know that Tennessee kind of came back a little bit, but they were pissed off in the
touchdown game.
It was lopsided for a period of time, though. And that game was much more.
Still had the ball down a touchdown, did they not?
It was more lopsided than anybody anticipated, I'm trying to get at. This Missouri team is not as good as that Tennessee team last year. I am hyper-focused on one thing. When teams have meltdowns in parts of games, that to me is the true identity of a team. And the way that they melted down at the end of that Missouri LSU game is concerning for me. That to me is more reflective of when they get their back up against the wall, how do they perform? Brady Cook played horribly. He played his worst series of the season, those few series that he turned the ball over. And it was very apparent that when he's pressured, when his guys are covered for extended periods of time, he can't make the right decisions. He's not a guy that is going to exceed unless things are flowing and are open for him. Luther Burden is hard to cover. I get that. But they have not faced a secondary this good. And that defensive line eventually will hit home. They got to be really careful here, man, because Georgia could eat if they make mistakes like they did against LSU.
The problem that I'm having right now is I can't disagree with you. Like, there's no real counter argument that I can have.
That's a first on this show.
No, it's not. Here is one thing that I do want to bring up. I brought it up earlier.
Wait, also Georgia Tennessee last year was 27-13. I thought that game was a little more lopsided than it was. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Okay, 14 points. Okay. So
we're predicting.
Pretty much like we're predicting. Yeah. True. One thing that I do think that you said that I do want to see Georgia get better at. It's the only area of, I'm going to use this in all quotations, weakness. They are 77th in the country in getting to the quarterback and sacks. Joe, they're top 10 in every statistical category that matters. They're first in the country on third down defense. Yep. They're third in the country in third down offense. They're eighth in the country in total defense. They're fourth in the country in total offense. At some point, we got to look at Georgia and say to ourselves, hey, man, I know that everybody keeps saying that they, keeps talking about them offensively. Joe, they're top 5. They're a top 5 offense in the country. So what are we talking about here?
It's because of the Auburn game. That's why. Because they looked bad against Auburn.
Okay, name a team not named Michigan that has not had a close game this year. I'm old enough to remember when Florida State almost got knocked off by Boston College, right? We have them in our top 3. I'm also old enough to remember. I'm not saying Notre Dame is a bad team. No, I'm not doing that. But stay with me here. They are a 4th and 17 conversion away from getting beat by Notre Dame. Ohio State is. Okay. Yeah. There have been a lot of teams that have had close games, and rivalry games in college football, anything goes, anything can happen. Literally anything can happen. Joe, I don't know that Georgia doesn't come out here and roll. The Bell kid, I still think like the fade. I'm so impressed by that kid because he runs a fade route. He lines up in the backfield. He's like the Georgia version of Deebo Samuel.
I was just about to say that.
I mean, you can put him in. I'm waiting for them to put him as a Wildcat and let him run the Wildcat. Maybe let him throw a pass or two. Hell, who knows?
They should.
He's been doing everything else. I just want to give Missouri the respect that they are deserved. I do think that they are lethal enough offensively to get some scores in here. Look, if Joe Milton can do some things offensively, and not against Georgia, it's not what I'm saying, but Cook can. These receivers are not bad. Like, Joe, it's one thing to cover Luther Burden. They got 2 other dudes that can eat now.
Yep.
It's not just a one-man show up there in Como. So I do think the Dogs win. I around the 14, 17-point range but I still think that that's closer than some people. Like Missouri's only lost 1 game this year. Like, people are disrespecting them. That's a great season for Drinkwitz. By the way,
right.
A lot of people were saying that he was on the hot board. They were saying he was going to get fired. And now all of a sudden he's second in the East.
Right. That needs to be brought up. And I think that what you just said there, I think definitely needs to be brought up of like some people are disrespecting Missouri. I'm not disrespecting Missouri. I think that Missouri is in a really good position this year to finish the season with 3 losses. They are going to be able to finish the season with a really good record because they have so many good things. But they are facing Thanos. Then this is you're not going to win a one-on-one with Thanos,
you gotta
man.
stop saying that. Thanos lost. Thanos in the end of it lost.
Let's forget that first. Yeah, but because everyone had to band together to beat him, and it took literally going back in time. They had to completely manipulate reality in order to beat him. So what I'm trying to get at here,
manipulating reality with superhero movies.
Yes, what I'm trying to get at here is it is too grand of a task for them to beat Georgia.
Now, let me just very quickly, got like 2 minutes. What happens if Mizzou does the unthinkable and wins? Then what?
For me, Georgia probably drops back to like 5 or maybe even less. Oh man, that's hard. I wouldn't move them any further back than 5. I can't say for certain where I would move them back to.
Oh, Joe, you'd have to put Missouri above them.
That is true. My battery, I'm having a battery issue by the way with my camera. It's you might want to send us to the home field read. I'm sorry. My point is though, I would move up Mizzou into the top 10.
You'd have to put them in the top 5.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a massive, massive leap. All right, let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. Joe and I will come back and we will talk about our top 10. We will do some more arguing. We will do some more yelling. We haven't really done that today. It's been pretty calm. But let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field. We'll be right back.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan. Whatever it is, even Idaho, they have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
All right, I just will say this. Joe, I've had more coaches in the SEC, okay, text me this week and say that they have watched the video that I posted about an LSU fan stuck his finger in my booty. Okay. If I knew, talking about rallying people together, I can't believe that dude, we literally have like 45 SEC coaches that follow us on AYS. Okay. Mm-hmm. I might have gotten half of them to text me that from Twitter. It's unbelievable. I laugh every time that happens. But
yeah, because anyone who's played the game and been around the game, we all think that way. We all have the same sense of humor.
All right, let's get into the top 10. Joe DeLeone with the outright stupidest top 10 I have ever seen in my life. This idiot has Air Force in his top 10. This has got to be the biggest troll I've ever seen.
I mean, they belong in there over Alabama.
You are an idiot.
Okay, that's not actually my top 10. This is my real top 10.
Okay. All right. But when you had Air Force there and I saw Air Force, I was like, what is he doing? So, and he did have, for everybody on the podcast, he did have Air Force at number 8. All right. So here is his real top 10. Well, read it off for us, Joe. Who do you have in your top 10?
Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, Florida State. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, Washington. 6 Oregon, 7 Texas, 8 Alabama, 9 Ole Miss, 10 Oklahoma.
You thought you were going to slip that one past by me with the Air Force.
No, I didn't think I was going to slip it past you. I knew you were going to realize it immediately. I just wanted to, because the bit has been on the show that I was going to find ways to keep Alabama out of it, and I can't do that anymore. But then I thought of the argument, maybe Air Force belongs in there.
So look, you know where I'm going. I want to spend less than 30 seconds on this. I just can't put Washington in the top 5 anymore because, Joe, like Oklahoma, okay, and it's why Oklahoma, I really debated not having Oklahoma in my top 10. I know that they beat Texas, and that's fine and dandy. Joe, they lost to Kansas, and they're a 2-point conversion away against UCF from losing. Right? Like they've had back-to-back really, really bad weeks defensively.
Yeah.
Really bad weeks defensively. With all that being said, man, I just can't have Washington in my top 5. I don't care that teams have a loss next to their name. It doesn't bother me if you play a good opponent and lose. I think they are so fraudulent, but I know that you're going to push back, which it is what it is.
Okay, well, I will see if we can try not to get into a debate right here. Look, I think that the head-to-head stuff is important. When there are losses, when teams have losses, it kind of goes out the window. We can reshuffle as I did with Oklahoma and Texas. But when we have a team that is undefeated and that they have been offensively as explosive as they have been in most of their games, their ceiling is that of a top 5 team. There are very few teams in the country that are up to that level of ceiling. And I don't think any of the other teams in the top 10 are as offensively explosive as they are for how quickly they can score. I think the results, as I said at the end of last show, I think the results of the last 2 games have been them just playing shit football and dicking around. Good teams find ways to win when they're playing bad. They have played poorly. That is not reflective of how they're actually capable of playing. And it sounds like I'm making an excuse for them. Yeah, I am making an excuse for them. But I think when it comes down to it, when they play these big games, like when they play against USC this weekend, they will find a way to win.
I'm not going to respond to it because we'll just get in another debate.
Yeah.
And I look, they're going to lose. And I think that they have potentially, I think they're going to lose one lose one in the regular season because you can't play that sloppy all the rest of the year and not slip up and get beat. There's going to be a team out there that knocks your I'm not going to say that, but they're going to put you in the mouth and you are not going to know how to respond. We'll see. Here's my top 10, Joe. Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Michigan. I am really close to taking Michigan out of my top 10. I mean, not top 10, my top 3. I just think Florida State and Ohio State both deserve to be ahead of them. But the eye test for me just I can't do it right now. Texas at number 5, Alabama at number 6, number 7, Washington, number 8, Oregon, number 9, Ole Miss, who cracks into the top 10 for me, and then number 10, Oklahoma.
Wait, wait, I need to pull that up one more second. So, okay, you know exactly where I'm going to go. We have the same problem with both of our top 10s every single time that we do this every single week. I cannot justify Alabama being there at number 6. Sure, we disagree about Alabama being ahead of Washington. I'm not going to go down that route. But Alabama cannot be ahead of Oregon. Oregon is, without a doubt, forget the loss for a second, the most balanced team in the country right now. I think that they are so balanced. They would be undefeated if it wasn't for bad in-game coaching decisions. They are firing on all cylinders. Even in that loss, they played really freaking well. I can't hold that against them. I can't. The only reason why they're further back is because they lost a game. That's the only reason why. They deserve to be ahead of Alabama.
You know why I have it there?
Why?
Because they almost got beat by Texas Tech too, and you don't allow for an Alabama to almost or get in a dogfight with a team like A&M, but you'll allow Oregon to get in a fight with Texas Tech.
But that hasn't been my argument. My argument is that Alabama's deficiencies have been glaring, and they've been very bad. Their offensive line has led to backbreaking sacks. The interceptions by Jalen Milroe have been terrible. Their offense, when it is bad, is horrifically bad. Oregon's game against Texas Tech was the second game of the season, and since then they have completely picked up and they have not looked back. I keep seeing the same problems on a weekly basis, even when they win. And this is part of my whole debate with Alabama when we did the preview, is that I think our perception of them is it's shrouded by Nick Saban and him being the head coach, that we are forgetting because they're winning that they have these big, huge problems.
But they are winning.
Okay, what are they? I'm not gonna say it. If they lose to LSU, what happens? I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste your time with that. But yes, they have won because they're beating teams that I don't think are as good as they look.
To the other part of that, Joe, but if they do beat LSU, okay, if they do, they're going to Atlanta. And they're going to play for the SEC championship game. And I will also tell you this. I didn't say this in the Georgia segment. I'll say it here. There's going to be a time where Georgia loses in that regular season, or they lose in the –
I don't agree with that part.
Joe, everybody loses in the regular season. There's a reason that USC's streak came to a halt. Why?
Because the – amazing players they had were gone.
Alabama has lost games in the regular season. Why? It is very difficult to win constantly and go undefeated in back-to-back years in the regular season. It just is.
It is, but they have every advantage for them to go undefeated again because they're playing Tennessee on a down year, and their best team that they're playing the rest of the season is Missouri. And we just talked about how they're going to beat them by 14.
Sure, but Joe, it would be almost unprecedented for them to go undefeated in the regular season in the SEC back-to-back years.
Well, precedents can be broken.
Sure, it can be, but I just think I think Bama defensively. Okay, so here's the thing with Oregon and Alabama, where I will admit Oregon offensively is really good. Okay, they hadn't seen a defense like Bama's. They haven't.
I don't know.
They want. Have they? Tell me the team. And you know what else? You say, well, what about Nick Saban? Yeah, let's talk about Nick Saban. And let's talk about Dan Lanning. I love Dan Lanning to death. But
we can't compare the two of them because one of them has been coaching for decades and the other one has been a head coach for 2 years.
It's about when they would play. Our top 10 is more of a power ranking on a neutral field. Okay, so it's not really a top 10. We should probably put this in as a power ranking show. Okay?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. We should actually rephrase that.
This is not a rankings for us. This is more of a power ranking. Okay, on a neutral field, Bama would be favored by 3.5 over Oregon.
I don't agree with that. I just feel like we are
green.
But this is what I'm saying though. This is what I'm trying to get at is that their offense. Let me rephrase. Their defense does not make up for how bad their offense is. It does not. It has helped them win games when their offense has made some terrible mistakes. But when they've actually are in a situation where they can be tested by an actually good team, I don't think that they're capable of coming out victorious. Oregon is better than Alabama is.
Alabama's Lanning win.
Utah last year. Utah won the conference last year and they beat Utah.
Sure. That's it.
They beat Washington.
Because if Nick Saban were to go on to beat LSU, it's better than, in my opinion.
Wait. No. That's also not fair to do because Dan Lanning's been coaching for a year and a half.
And that's the point. You can't do, you're trying to take Saban off the board. You can't do that.
I'm not taking him off the board. I'm just trying to point out that we're giving him way too much slack. We're giving him way too much slack.
Who?
Saban. We're giving him way too much slack.
The game.
They have taken advantage of multiple teams being overrated. They beat Texas A&M when we thought they were somebody.
Hold on. If Alabama was a wing T pass away at Stanford from losing, what would you have done?
Wait, sorry, say it again. I got distracted.
If Alabama was a wing T double pass away from losing to Stanford on the road, what would you do?
I would point out their flaws.
Okay. Do the same to Washington. We're
not talking about Washington right now. We're talking about
okay. I know. Hold on. If Alabama were to go on the road against Texas Tech and had the same performance that Oregon did, what would you do? You're not creating them. You're not creating them equally. You're looking at it as everything that goes on in Bama. You got to take the bias out of everything else that happened and look at it here.
Removing the bias in all seriousness. Yes, we're doing a power ranking, and a lot of the power ranking comes into play is the eye test, what we're visually seeing. And I see more well-rounded teams in that top 10. Yes, I'm a little bullish on Washington, and I'm trying to project heavily there on how I think they're going to play in the final weeks of the season. And it's a little bit of a risky move. But I've seen enough of Alabama to know that they have got holes. They have serious, serious holes on that roster.
Like glory?
All right, that's good note to end the show.
All right, what else you got for me? Well, let me look at yours.
Air Force is a top 10 team, man.
Can we talk about Ole Miss? Both of us have them at number 9.
Yeah, I mean, I got to be completely honest. I feel like I am forcing myself to put them there. I really do feel like I am.
You texted me this weekend and said that you thought Ole Miss would beat Oklahoma.
Wait, did I?
Yeah, you might have been a little drunk.
I wasn't. I don't remember texting
me. It wasn't you that sent me that text. But I do think so that they're a top 10 team. Here's the biggest misconception about Ole Miss right now. Mm-hmm. Everybody had only looked or watched that Alabama game and maybe LSU because of how high scoring it was. Joe, defensively, they're not a bad team at all. Like yes, the LSU game. Okay. All right. I'm with you. I'm with you. They look like shit against LSU. A lot of teams that look like shit against LSU. Just throwing that out there. Mm-hmm. Joe, they have a lot of these. Did you know that they were a top 20 teams at getting to the quarterback in sacks? Like, yeah, has done some good things for them.
Yes. I just think, I know we're coming up on time here before we get to the next show. I think that their defensive performances have come in advantageous situations for them to look better than they maybe are because they've played some bad teams. My reasoning for putting Ole Miss there, I think, is more telling of the fact that we're starting to really figure out there's maybe less parity than we think there is, and that Penn State being bumped from my top 10 and your top 10 just shows that after that 7 spot, it gets really, really weak. And I think in the next couple of weeks, it's going to start to get even weaker in that 5 to 7 range.
Agreed. Great show, buddy.
Good show.
All right, we'll see you. We're going to have me and Joe are going to talk about it. We might need to come back either Tuesday or Thursday.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right.
We'll figure it out.
We'll talk to y'all then. Y'all have a good night. Peace.